This is an unauthorized commercial operation. Rules don't care about feelings.
No, please stop!
My 10-year-old autistic son was so proud. He'd made a lemonade stand for his school fundraiser. It was the first time he'd ever wanted to interact with neighbors. An HOA president walked up, knocked over his table, poured out all his lemonade, and told him, businesses aren't allowed in residential zones. My son was having a meltdown. 2 hours of work were destroyed in 10 seconds. What she didn't know, I'm the county tax assessor. I review every property in this district, including hers. And I just discovered something interesting about her residence. Here's what I found. Let me take you back to where this all started. 3 weeks ago, on a Saturday morning, my son, Tommy, came into the kitchen with his tablet. Now, Tommy doesn't usually ask for much. He's got autism, and big social situations make him anxious. He prefers his room, his routines, his comfortable space. But this morning was different. "Dad," he said, not quite making eye contact like he usually does, "my teacher said we can do a fundraiser for the field trip." His 5th grade class was planning a trip to the Science Museum, the one 2 hours away, with the planetarium. Tommy had been talking about that planetarium for months. He'd memorized every constellation and every planet's rotation period. This trip was everything to him. "That's great, buddy," I said. "What kind of fundraiser?" He showed me his tablet. Everyone's doing different things. Cookie sales, car washes. He paused. "Can I do a lemonade stand?" I nearly dropped my coffee. Tommy, wanting to interact with neighbors. The kid who needed noise-canceling headphones at the grocery store was volunteering to talk to strangers. "Are you sure?" I asked him gently. He nodded, more excited than I'd seen him in months. "I've been researching. I know the best lemon-to-sugar ratio. I know about profit margins. I can do this, Dad." My wife, Sarah, walked in and heard the tail end of the conversation. She looked at me, and I could see the same hope in her eyes. This was huge for Tommy. "Then let's do it," I said. "We'll make the best lemonade stand this neighborhood has ever seen." The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. Tommy threw himself into this project as I'd never seen. He created spreadsheets, yes, spreadsheets calculating costs and projected earnings. He designed signs. He practiced his greeting. "Hello, would you like some lemonade? It's 50 cents a cup, and it goes to my class trip." He must have practiced that line 500 times. We built the stand together in the garage. Nothing fancy, just a folding table with a tablecloth his mom had decorated with painted lemons. But to Tommy, it was perfect. The Friday night before the big day, he couldn't sleep. He came downstairs at 11 p.m., asking if we'd remembered to buy the paper cups. Then, at midnight, worried we didn't have enough ice. At 1 a.m., I checked if his money box was still in the kitchen. "Tommy," I finally said, "it's all ready. Everything's perfect. You're going to do great." He looked at me with those serious eyes. "What if nobody comes?" "Then we'll have a lot of lemonade for ourselves," I said. "But people will come. Trust me." Saturday morning arrived. At 7 a.m., Tommy was already up, dressed, and ready to go. By 8:30, we had the stand set up at the end of our driveway. Perfect spot, corner lot. Good visibility, decent foot traffic for weekend walkers. Tommy had made 3 pitchers of lemonade. He'd squeezed the lemons himself, measured everything precisely. He'd arranged the cups in neat rows, placed his homemade signs just right, and organized his money box by denomination. "Okay, buddy," I said. "Mom and I will be right here on the porch if you need us." He nodded, took a deep breath, and stood behind his stand. The first customer came within 15 minutes. Mrs. Henderson from 2 streets over, walking her golden retriever. "Well, hello there, young man," she said. "Is that lemonade for sale?" Tommy launched into his practiced greeting, stumbling only slightly over the words. Mrs. Henderson bought 2 cups, gave him a $5 bill, and told him to keep the change. You should have seen Tommy's face. Pure joy. Over the next hour, business was steady. Dog walkers, joggers, and a few families out for morning strolls. Tommy was beaming, carefully making change, and thanking everyone. He was doing it. He was really doing it. That's when she showed up. Now, before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand something about our HOA president, Linda Carmichael, because of what she did to my son. That was just the beginning of discovering who she really was. And trust me, by the end of this story, she's going to regret every single second of what came next. I'd seen Linda Carmichael around the neighborhood before. Hard to miss her. She was the kind of person who drove a white Mercedes SUV with an HOA board president vanity plate. She wore designer yoga outfits to check mailboxes and carried a tablet everywhere to document violations. The neighborhood had mixed feelings about her. Some people appreciated that she kept the community looking nice. Others had horror stories, fines for the wrong shade of mailbox paint, citations for Christmas decorations being up 2 days past the HOA deadline, warnings about children's bikes left on lawns. But she'd never bothered us. We kept our yard maintained, followed the rules. No issues. Until that Saturday morning. I was sitting on the porch, watching Tommy with pride, when I saw Linda's white Mercedes turn onto our street. She slowed down as she passed Tommy's stand, and I saw her face change. That look. I work in county government, and I know that look. It's the look of someone who's spotted a violation, a problem, something they can exercise authority over. She pulled into our driveway. "This can't be good," Sarah muttered beside me. Linda got out of her car, tablet in hand, and walked straight to Tommy's lemonade stand. She didn't greet him, didn't smile, just looked down at him like he was a problem to be solved. "Young man," she said, her voice sharp, "are you aware that you're in violation of HOA Code Section 7.3, subsection B?" Tommy looked confused. I'm selling lemonade. For my school trip. This is a residential zone," Linda said, louder now. "Commercial activities are strictly prohibited. You're running an unauthorized business." I stood up. "Hold on now." She held up a hand without looking at me. "This is between me and this young man. He needs to learn about rules and consequences." Tommy's hand started to shake. I know the signs he was getting overwhelmed. "Ma'am," I said, walking toward them, "he's just a kid raising money for a school field trip. It's a lemonade stand." "I don't care if he's selling water in the desert," Linda snapped. "Rules are rules. The HOA has standards, and if we let one person break them, everyone will think they can do whatever they want." She turned back to Tommy. "You have 5 minutes to pack this up." What happened next, I'll remember for the rest of my life. Tommy tried to respond, but his words got stuck. His stimming increased. He started rocking slightly, a sign he was reaching his limit. He looked at me with panic in his eyes. "He has autism," Sarah said, coming down from the porch. "He needs a minute to process." "I don't have time for excuses," Linda said. 5 minutes, or I'm calling code enforcement." "This is ridiculous," I said, my voice rising. "It's a children's lemonade stand. We're not violating anything for minutes now," Linda said, checking her watch. Tommy's breathing got faster. He was shutting down. I moved toward him, but Linda stepped between us. "He needs to clean this up himself," she said. "Personal responsibility." "Get out of my way," I said. "He's my son, and he needs." Linda didn't move, and Tommy, my sweet, gentle boy who'd worked so hard for this, who'd pushed through his anxiety for this moment, started to cry. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." "I'm sorry." He reached for the pitcher of lemonade, his hands shaking so badly that Linda grabbed it first. "Let me help you understand how serious this is," and she poured it out. Right there on the grass. 3 pitchers of lemonade that Tommy had spent the morning making. Just poured them out while my son watched. Then she swept her hand across the table, knocking cups everywhere, sending his carefully organized money box flying, bills and coins scattering across the driveway. "There," she said. "Now you've learned about following the rules." Tommy collapsed. Not dramatically, he just sort of folded in on himself, hands over his ears, rocking, making a sound in the back of his throat that he only makes when he's completely overwhelmed. Sarah rushed to him. I stood there, frozen in a kind of rage I'd never experienced before. "You just assaulted a child," I said quietly. "I did no such thing," Linda said. I removed an illegal business operation from HOA property. This is all on video. She held up her tablet. And if you'd like to file a complaint with the board, you're welcome to. I'm the president, so I'll be sure to give it all the attention it deserves. She got in her Mercedes and drove away. It took 2 hours to calm Tommy down. 2 hours of rocking tears and repeated apologies for breaking the rules. He didn't leave his room for the rest of the weekend. But here's the thing about Linda Carmichael. She made a critical mistake that day. She didn't ask what I did for a living. Didn't think to wonder if maybe, just maybe, she'd picked the wrong person to bully. Because on Monday morning, I went back to my office at the county assessor's building, and I started looking into every property in our HOA, including hers. What do I find? Oh, you're going to love this. Let me explain what I do, for those who might not know. As county tax assessor, I'm responsible for determining the value of every property in the county for tax purposes. I review building permits, additions, renovations, and property changes. I make sure what's on record matches what actually exists. It's not a glamorous job. Most days, it's spreadsheets and site visits and arguing with homeowners who think their house is worth less than it actually is. But sometimes you discover something interesting. Monday morning, I pulled up the property records for Linda Carmichael's address. Standard procedure when I want to review something. The file came up on my screen. 2847 Maple Ridge Drive. Purchased 12 years ago. Single-family residence. 2,400 square feet. Assessed value accordingly. I zoomed in on the satellite imagery. Current photos from our last aerial survey, 6 months ago. And that's when I saw it. Linda Carmichael's house had a massive addition on the back. I'm talking at least 800 square feet, maybe more. 2-story structure, looked like it had been built within the last few years. I checked the building permits on file. Nothing. No permit for any addition. No variance request. No construction approval. I sat back in my chair. This couldn't be right. Major construction like that requires multiple permits, inspections, and final approval. It's not optional. It's the law. I pulled up the property tax records. She was still being taxed on the original 2,400 square feet. That addition didn't exist, according to the county records. My colleague, Jim, walked by my office. You okay? You look like you just won the lottery. Jim, I said, hypothetically speaking. If someone built a major addition to their house without permits and failed to report it for tax purposes, what would happen? Jim whistled. Hypothetically, they'd be looking at unpaid back taxes based on the increased value, penalties for non-disclosure, possible fines for unpermitted construction, could run into tens of thousands depending on the size. And if that person was, say, an HOA president who was very strict about everyone else following rules. Jim grinned. That would be what we call poetic justice. Why do you ask? I told him about Saturday. About Tommy, the lemonade stand. The whole thing. His smile faded. She did that to a kid. Your kid. He looked at my screen. Is that her house? I nodded. Do a full site inspection, Jim said immediately. Today, I'll clear your schedule. At 2 p.m., I pulled up to 2847 Maple Ridge Drive in my county vehicle, inspection clipboard in hand. This was all perfectly legal and within my authority. Random property inspections are part of the job, ensuring tax assessments are accurate. Linda answered the door in her yoga outfit, a smile on her face. The smile vanished when she recognized me. You, she said. Good afternoon, Mrs. Carmichael. I'm here for a routine property assessment inspection. May I come in? This is harassment, she said. You're retaliating because of Saturday. Ma'am, this is a scheduled county inspection. I'm required by law to verify property records. You can either allow me to conduct the inspection now, or I can come back with a county enforcement officer. Your choice. She stared at me for a long moment, then stepped aside. The addition was even more impressive from the inside. She'd converted what was once a backyard into a massive extended living space. The lower level had a home gym, entertainment room, and guest suite. The upper level was an art studio with skylights. Beautiful work. Probably cost $100,000, minimum. I took measurements, photos, and notes. Linda followed me through every room, arms crossed. "This is a lovely addition," I said casually. "When was it built?" 3 years ago, she said. "Interesting. I don't see any permits on file for this construction." Her face paled slightly. "That's impossible. My contractor handled all of that." "What was the contractor's name?" I'd have to look it up." "Please do. I'll need that information for my report." I continued the inspection. The addition was well built, no doubt, but it was also completely illegal. After an hour, I finished my notes. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mrs. Carmichael. You'll receive a formal assessment update within 2 weeks." "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means your property value has been significantly underreported. Your tax assessment will be corrected, and you'll receive a bill for back taxes based on the new square footage." "How much?" I did some quick math. "Approximately $47,000 in back taxes for the past 3 years, plus penalties and interest. Call it $60,000 total." She turned white. "That's outrageous." "That's the law, ma'am. The same law that says you need permits for major construction. Same law you accused my 10-year-old son of violating when he tried to sell lemonade for a school trip. Now, you might think that's where the story ends. Tax bill served, justice delivered, right?" But Linda Carmichael wasn't done making mistakes. Because instead of just paying the bill and moving on, she decided to fight back. And what she did next, that's when things got really interesting. The next day, Sarah got an email from the HOA, subject line, "Formal complaint property violations." Linda had filed a complaint against our house. Multiple complaints, actually. She claimed our fence was 1 inch too tall, per HOA regulations. That our mailbox was the wrong shade of black. That our lawn had been 1/8 inch too long on 3 separate occasions, that she'd documented. She'd attached photos, measurements, and timestamps. She'd clearly been planning this. The email concluded with a notice that we were being fined $500 for the violations, and had 10 days to remedy all issues or face additional penalties. Sarah was upset. Can she do this? This is insane. I read through the complaints carefully. She's not wrong about the technical violations. Our fence is 72 inches, HOA code says 71 inches maximum. The mailbox is off by 1 shade on the color chart. You're kidding. She's trying to intimidate us. Make us drop the tax assessment. I set down the email. She doesn't know me very well. I paid the $500 fine. Then I adjusted our fence by 1 inch and repainted our mailbox to the exact shade specified. I documented everything with photos and timestamps, exactly like she had. Then I sent a reply. All violations corrected. Thank you for bringing them to our attention. As a county employee, I appreciate citizens who are so diligent about following regulations. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. 2 days later, I got a call from the county building inspector, my friend Marcus. "Hey, you're not going to believe this," he said. "I just got a formal complaint about unpermitted work on your property. Someone claims you've been running a business out of your home without proper licensing." "What?" "Yeah, anonymous tip. Says you're operating a commercial enterprise in a residential zone. I have to come inspect." I laughed, but it wasn't funny. Linda Carmichael, the HOA president. Why would she Oh no. Is this about that lemonade stand thing I heard about? Small town, word travels. Marcus came by that afternoon and did a quick walkthrough. You're clean, obviously. No business operation, no violations. I'll file my report. Thanks, Marcus. But hey, he said as he was leaving, I heard about your assessment of her property, that addition. We're going to need to do a full building code inspection. No permits means no inspections, and no inspections means we need to verify everything meets code. Electrical, plumbing, structural, the whole thing. Is that standard procedure? He grinned. When do we discover unpermitted construction of that magnitude? Absolutely. And if anything doesn't meet code, she'll have to bring it up to standard. Could be expensive. Linda Carmichael was about to have a very bad week. The building inspection happened the following Monday. I wasn't there, but Marcus told me about it later. The addition had multiple code violations, electrical work that wasn't up to standard, improper ventilation in the art studio. The deck railing was 2 inches below the required height, and the foundation hadn't been properly inspected, so they couldn't verify it met load-bearing requirements without drilling core samples. Linda was given a list of corrections required to bring the addition up to code. Estimated cost, $30,000 to $40,000. She had 60 days to complete the work, or the county could condemn the addition as unsafe. But that wasn't even the worst part. See, when you build without permits, your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover that structure. Marcus mentioned this in his report. Someone I don't know who sent a copy to Linda's insurance company. Her insurance company sent an inspector. They discovered the unpermitted addition and canceled her policy effective immediately. She had 30 days to find new coverage, but good luck getting anyone to insure a house with major code violations and unpermitted construction. Linda tried to appeal everything. She claimed the contractor had told her permits were filed. She hired a lawyer to fight the tax assessment. She went to the county board meeting and complained about harassment. But the facts were simple. She'd built without permits, hadn't paid proper taxes, and was now facing the consequences of her own actions. Meanwhile, Tommy was doing better. He'd eventually recovered from the lemonade stand incident, though he didn't want to try again. His teacher, Mrs. Patterson, heard what happened and organized a class car wash fundraiser instead. Tommy helped make signs, but didn't have to interact with customers. They raised enough for everyone to go on the field trip. At this point, you'd think Linda Carmichael would cut her losses, pay her bills, and move on with her life, right? Maybe even apologize. That's not what happened. Instead, she made one final mistake, the biggest one of all. And this time, it didn't just affect her. It affected the entire HOA. 6 weeks after my initial inspection, Linda called an emergency HOA meeting. Mandatory attendance for all homeowners. The email said it was about critical neighborhood business. Sarah and I showed up. So did about 40 other homeowners from our development. Linda stood at the front of the community center, looking tired. The past month had clearly taken its toll, but she still had that same rigid posture, that same superior expression. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "We're here to discuss a matter of extreme importance to our community. One of our residents has been abusing his position in county government to harass and intimidate board members." She was talking about me. "This resident," she continued, "used his position as tax assessor to conduct what I can only describe as a targeted attack against me personally. He fabricated violations, manipulated records, and coordinated with other county departments to make my life hell. All because I enforced HOA rules that his son was violating." Murmurs went through the crowd. Some people looked at me. "I'm calling for a vote tonight," Linda said. "I want this resident removed from the HOA. I want him banned from all community events. And I want the board to file a formal complaint with the county about his abuse of power." Sarah squeezed my hand. I stood up. "May I respond?" I asked. Linda looked like she wanted to say no, but too many people were watching. "Fine." I walked to the front, didn't bring notes, didn't need them. 6 weeks ago, I said, my 10-year-old son, who has autism, set up a lemonade stand to raise money for a school field trip. Mrs. Carmichael came to our house, berated him, poured out his lemonade, and knocked over his table. My son had a panic attack that lasted 2 hours. I looked around the room. People were listening. The following Monday, as part of my normal job duties, I reviewed property records in our neighborhood. I discovered that Mrs. Carmichael's house has an 800-square-foot addition built without permits, uninspected, and unreported for tax purposes. I paused. This wasn't fabrication. This wasn't harassment. This was literally my job. I'm required by law to ensure accurate property assessments. When I find unreported construction, I'm required to update the records. That's not abuse of power, that's doing my job. He's lying, Linda said. He targeted me specifically. Actually, came a voice from the back. He didn't. Everyone turned. Jim from my office was standing there. He walked to the front. I'm Jim Patterson, Deputy County Assessor. I authorized the inspection of Mrs. Carmichael's property. Want to know why? He pulled out his tablet. Because after this incident came to my attention, I reviewed all properties in this HOA, and Mrs. Carmichael's wasn't the only one with unreported additions. The room went silent. That's right, Jim continued. We found 14 properties in this development with unpermitted construction or unreported modifications. Every single one is being reviewed. Every single one will receive updated tax assessments. Because that's the law. He looked at Linda. You filed complaints about one resident abusing power, but you created a situation where we had to review the entire neighborhood. And you know whose house had the most violations? Yours. By a significant margin. The vote never happened. Instead, the HOA board called for Linda's resignation. 3 board members had violations of their own, nothing as major as Linda's, but enough that they didn't want to draw attention. They voted to accept her resignation immediately. Linda tried to fight it, but the HOA bylaws were clear. The board has the authority to remove any member, including the president, for conduct detrimental to the community. She resigned the next day. The new HOA president, a retired teacher named George Brennan, was a lot more reasonable. First thing he did was amend the HOA rules to explicitly allow children's lemonade stands, bake sales, and other temporary fundraising activities. Didn't know we needed a rule for common sense, he said at the next meeting. But apparently we do. Linda's house saga continued for months. She paid the back taxes, had to take out a loan. She completed the code corrections, had to sell her Mercedes to afford it. She finally found an insurance company willing to cover her house, but the premiums were astronomical. 6 months after the lemonade stand incident, she put her house on the market. Sold it at a loss due to all the complications with the addition. I heard she moved to a condo on the other side of town. As for Tommy, the Science Museum field trip was amazing, according to him. He spent 3 hours in the planetarium and came home talking about elliptical orbits and red dwarf stars. But the real change came last spring. Tommy asked if he could do another lemonade stand. Not for fundraising this time, just because he wanted to. We set it up on a Sunday morning. Same spot, same table, new signs he made himself. And this time, the neighbors came out in force. Mrs. Henderson bought 4 cups. Marcus, the building inspector, stopped by with his whole family. Even George Brennan came by and bought lemonade for everyone at his weekly poker game. Tommy made $87 that day. He donated half to his school library and kept the rest. But more importantly, he stood there for 3 hours, talking to neighbors, making change, smiling. He was proud, and not one person knocked over his table. Here's what I learned from all of this. Bullies rely on you not fighting back. They count on you being too intimidated, too tired, too afraid to stand up. Linda Carmichael thought she could push around a 10-year-old kid and his parents. She thought her position as HOA president made her untouchable. She thought nobody would dare challenge her. She was wrong. I didn't abuse my power. I didn't fabricate anything. I didn't target her unfairly. I simply did my job, the same job I do for every property in the county. But the difference is, I did it thoroughly. And when you're breaking the rules yourself, you really shouldn't go around enforcing them on others. Especially not on a kid selling lemonade. So if you're dealing with an HOA Karen, a neighborhood bully, or anyone else who thinks they can push you around, remember this story. Sometimes the person you're messing with has more power than you think, and sometimes karma comes with a tax bill. If you liked this story, hit that subscribe button. I share real stories about standing up to bullies, getting justice, and protecting what matters most. Drop a comment and let me know, have you ever dealt with an HOA nightmare? What happened? And hey, if you've got kids in your life, encourage their lemonade stands. You never know what they might learn from the experience. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.